Hey everyone, and welcome as we continue our study through the New Testament Gospels, looking at the 250 events in the life of Jesus. And today we're looking at the religious leaders challenging the Jesus's authority. And he's in Jerusalem, and he's back in the temple, and the religious leaders are trying to trick him up, trying to get him to say something that they can charge him against, so they can have a reason to get rid of him and kill him. And so I'm going to go. This is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke. I'm going to read from Matthew 21 verses 23 through 27. We'll look at the notes. It says in verse 23 of Matthew 21, it says, "When Jesus returned to the temple and began teaching, and the leading priests and elders came up to him, they demanded, 'By what authority are you doing all these things? Who gave you the right?'" And so Jesus says, I'll tell you by what authority I do these things if you answer one question." Jesus replied, "Did John's authority to baptize come from heaven, or was it merely human?" And I love this about Jesus. Most of the time, he doesn't answer their questions directly, he responds with another question. And so they talked among themselves. They were saying, if we say it was from heaven, he will ask us why we didn't believe John. But if we say it was merely human, we'll be mobbed because the people believed John was a prophet. So they finally replied, "We don't know." They just didn't have an answer to give, that they couldn't. And so Jesus responded, "Then I won't tell you by what authority I do these things." And so the religious leaders here, they were in a little bit of a mess because they were trying to trap Jesus, and Jesus ends up trapping them. And so they're trying to get him caught up, and so, or for a reason to be able to come. But instead, Jesus contradicted their question, or countered their question with a question about John the Baptist, and they had to try to save face. And so they had, if we go back and look, and if you remember, they had not stood up for John, and they tried to get when they and didn't try to get him released. And John had irritated him just as Jesus has done. And you can go back and see Matthew 3, verses 7 through 10 for that. And so what we have here is the Pharisees and religious leaders. They were always cloaked in self-interest, right? They were only concerned about positions and reputations and their power. They weren't really looking for truth. If they were really looking for the truth, then they would have accepted who Jesus was. And so in John 3:19, Jesus summed up this attitude. It says, "People love darkness more than they light, and their actions were evil." And that's just, we see that a lot today. People do, they enjoy the darkness more than they do the light. They don't, people with power and authority, what they think is power and authority, they don't want to give that up. They don't want to accept that Jesus is who he is, or they don't want to truly follow Jesus. And so they really mess that up. And so people who reject Jesus's claims, they have a greater problem than this intellectual doubt that we see here from the leaders. They're rebelling against God, right? About against Christ's control of their lives. And that's the biggest thing. It's not just intellectual doubt, it's about giving up control as well. And so they try to ask these trick questions, but they don't really want an answer. They don't want the truth. They are looking for him to say something that they can trap him in. Sincere seekers, right? Sincere people will ask true questions, and really want the truth, and listen to what the answers that are given. They're trying to get rid of Jesus here, and so they're trying to trap him with these questions. If Jesus had answered that his authority came from God, right? If he stated openly that he was the Messiah and the Son of God, they would accuse him of blasphemy, and would have brought him to trial. And so it wasn't ready for that time yet. We still got several days before the crucifixion. He knows exactly when he's going to die. He knows exactly. He's got it all played out. He's got it all prepared. And so he answers this way because, again, it's not his time to tell him exactly who he gets his authority from. And we'll see, he finally gets there. And so Jesus didn't let himself get caught up in that. Instead, he turned the question on them. And so he exposed their motives, and he avoided their trap by doing so. And so we'll continue on. Tomorrow we're looking at Jesus telling the parable of the two sons. And then we get into a little bit deeper, and we're going to see a slow or a quick, acceleration. I don't know what escalation is the word I was looking for. I'm sorry. Between Jesus and the Pharisees, and then he really goes all out on them, and just straight up attacks them and calls them every name in the book, and really just challenges who they are in front of everyone. And we're going to look at that. But we're going to continue to see this escalate, escalate, and escalate until it eventually leads to his arrest and his crucifixion. As always, I appreciate everyone for watching. I know this was a shorter one, and sometimes the way they play out, that's the role. But I appreciate you listening and paying attention to these. I appreciate you sharing them. I'm hoping it's useful to you and to the people that you're sharing it to. As always, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please go ahead and do that, because we're going to keep producing different things like this, trying to go through different series and different things. And as always, I appreciate everyone for watching.